immediately after starting the weaning process, I was feeling different. My name is Jessica Johnson and welcome to my channel. Before I jump in, I just want to make sure that you know that I am not an expert. I am simply a woman sharing my experience. Really, the goal here is to maybe help you feel a little less crazy. This video is also in no way meant to deter you from breastfeeding. I think breastfeeding can be a really great thing for both you and your baby. There are lots of things I liked about my breastfeeding experience, and there are also a lot of things that I didn't like about my breastfeeding experience. So go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more videos on this motherhood journey, and we can go through it together. So yeah, I had been breastfeeding for months. When I say I had a pretty decent breastfeeding experience as far as ability, he latched fine, all of that was fine. But I noticed pretty early on, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, particularly over my health. And when I say a lot of anxiety, it was replaying the same thought over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was almost obsessive. I was constantly terrified that I was going to die. That was the thought. This continued for a couple of months. Whenever I would get over like one fear, like from a certain symptom that would show up, anytime there was another health issue with me, I would jump to the worst conclusion and I would replay again that same thought over and over and over. So it kind of just moved from thing to thing. And it kind of just got to this point where I knew that something wasn't right, that it just wasn't normal. Because for a while, I started to believe that that's just kind of who I was now. I started to think, maybe I'm just like this way. Maybe I am just this anxious. Maybe I've changed. And so I was like, I am just so tired of living this way. I have to do something about it. So I took the step and I even went to therapy a couple of times, which it taught me a couple of things, but I think maybe I just wasn't seeing probably the right counselor for me. That wasn't quite the fix. I did join a women's Bible study during all of that too, because for the reasons that you're here talking to me is, the reasons that I joined that group, is basically I had some accountability. They helped me let me know that I wasn't crazy, that they've experienced similar things. It was right around the 6-month mark where I was like, I'm gonna start to wean. Pretty immediately after starting the weaning process, suddenly I was feeling different. I would say it only took a couple of days before I realized, oh, whoa, I feel less anxious. Literally night and day. I went from having those spiraling nonstop thoughts of the fear of death to it being like pretty much gone. Literally a span of just days. I kept giving it more time and more time and more time because, weaning takes, at least for me, it took like a solid month. And I just felt better and better and better every day. I realized how depressed I actually was. I feel happy. I feel light. I started laughing at things easier. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, I want to go out and do things more. And this all just came from stopping breastfeeding. I do think there's a few different reasons for that. Probably hormones is a huge part because I have no explanation other than, I was feeling one way with those crazy spiraling thoughts, and then pretty much the minute I stopped breastfeeding, those all went away. But also, for me, breastfeeding was really exhausting. No matter how much I ate, no matter how much water I drank, I constantly felt depleted because I'm also a very active person. So on top of that, I felt like I constantly was just like, I need to eat, I need to eat, I need to eat. And yet it was all going to my baby, which maybe, my body could be very efficient in that way, like feeding my baby the way it should be, but it was truly like depleting my energy levels. So pretty much immediately after I started that weaning process, my energy levels started returning. And also, I was never that person to begin with that was always like, yeah, breastfeeding. I know some people before they ever even get pregnant or even close that like that's something that they know that they want for their child. Like that was never something that was like super duper important to me for some reason. I think there was this part of me that felt like, I guess I should be doing this thing. It's the right thing to do. And I do think that probably contributed. There was that mental element. You're constantly having to think, did I eat enough? Like before I left the house, do I have water with me? So when I was able to release myself of the mental burden of having to think about those things, that also took something off my plate. So I'm not gonna say 100% it was all hormonal. I do believe the anxiety part for sure, but I do think there were other things that contributed. Whenever I would hear somebody talk about their experience with depression or anxiety, I think there was this part of me that because I had never experienced it myself, I never would have said this out loud, but I think I kind of wrote off their experiences like, oh, like you're just not doing blank enough. And for me, being a follower of Christ, there was probably this little thing in the back of my mind that's like, well, like a lot of people that struggle with those things, like maybe they're just not placing like all of their hope and joy in the Lord. And I hate that I say that, but I think there was this part of me that did believe that. And then I walked through it myself and I realized that you really can have something chemically off with you that is not directly connected to your level of belief. And that really has given me such a fresh perspective and empathy towards people in a whole new way that like I look back at myself from not that long ago and go, oh, Jessica. Because of my faith, while I was walking through that valley, I knew that I couldn't find these answers within myself. I did join that small group. That was just so incredibly healthy for me to dive into the Word of God with just a group of women and especially moms who have walked through similar things. It also caused me to dive into the Bible in a way that I have never done before. I have been a Christian for a long time, and this was the first time in my life that I just felt like I need the Word of God. Even now that I'm out of that cloud, I have a relationship with the Bible that I had not had before. I think that the reason I didn't see it, because it creeps up on you, it's easy to convince yourself that like this is just like how you are. You know what I mean? Like if you just woke up one day depressed and you were like a super joyful, happy person the day before, you would be able to be like, oh yeah, something's wrong, like let's fix this. But because it was slow and crept up on me, all I knew was that something was wrong. Then I would question myself, like maybe something isn't wrong. Maybe this is just motherhood. I was just so relieved to know that though motherhood is not perfect, it didn't have to feel the way that I was feeling. And I can tell my hormones are still like figuring itself out, but it was the right decision for me, and my baby's still alive and happy. And if you think that it's time to wean, or maybe you have this little thought in the back of your mind like maybe this is the answer for me, it's worth a shot. And now I 100% understand why people say they stopped because of their own mental health. Maybe I can make a part 2. If there's more that you want to know about my experience or more details, I'd be happy to provide that. Let me know if that's something that you want to hear from me. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.